Deep within the forests of northern Ukraine, a giant of steel and wire slumbers. This is the Duga radar, a relic of Cold War secrecy. For years it was a ghost on the airwaves, baffling radio operators and intelligence agencies worldwide. Its existence was denied, its purpose a mystery. Hidden in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, it stood as a silent sentinel from a forgotten age. The Duga wasn't just technology, it was a statement of power and paranoia. Imagine walking through quiet woods, then suddenly seeing a lattice of metal climbing into the sky. The scale is staggering, dwarfing everything around it. This was a weapon, but not one that fired bullets. Its ammunition was invisible, traveling at the speed of light. The Duga's story is a journey back to a world divided, where the Soviet Union and the United States stood on the brink of annihilation. In this tense peace, information was everything. The Duga was born from the need to know, an eye designed to see over the horizon to watch for the first sign of attack. But for the rest of the world, it was a source of frustration and wild theories. It was the Russian woodpecker, a relentless tapping that interfered with communications across the planet. No one knew where it came from or what it was for. It was just there, a constant, irritating reminder of the secretive power behind the Iron Curtain. The Duga radar wasn't just a structure of steel, it was a structure of mystery. Its story is one of the strangest and most compelling tales of the Cold War, a monument to ambition and fear. It remains a symbol of an era when giants listened for the faintest sign of danger. Today, it stands rusting, but its legend endures. The Duga is a question mark on the landscape, a relic of a world that lived in the shadow of annihilation. Its silence now is as haunting as its signal once was. The steel giant of Pripyat waits, a monument to secrets and the power of fear. To understand the Duga radar, you must understand the fear that built it. During the Cold War, nuclear anxiety gripped the world. The US and Soviet Union had enough weapons to destroy humanity many times over. The question wasn't if war would be devastating, but who would strike first, and who would see it coming. Mutually assured destruction or MAD kept the peace through terror. For this balance to work, each side needed time to retaliate. Even a few minutes' warning could mean survival. Early warning systems became paramount. The Americans had satellites and the ballistic missile early warning systems scanning the Arctic skies. The Soviets needed their own eyes, ones that could see over the curve of the Earth. Conventional radar couldn't do that. The answer over the horizon radar bouncing signals off the ionosphere. This was the genesis of Duga, its name meaning arc in Russian. The plan built a network of giant radars to monitor North America for missile launches. The Duga's sensitive receivers would detect disturbances in the ionosphere caused by rocket engines. It was the Soviet Union's best hope for a few precious minutes of warning. A warning that, they hoped, would give them a fighting chance in the opening moments of World War III. The Duga was born from fear and built for survival. The Duga radar's physical presence is staggering. It's not a building, it's a wall of steel and wire mesh dominating the landscape. The most famous array, Duga 1, stands near Pripyat and the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Two massive antenna arrays, the larger nearly 150 meters high, stretching almost 700 meters long, an industrial megalith built with thousands of tons of steel deep in a restricted military zone. The structure is a complex web of transmitters and receivers, casting signals across continents. Built to last, it still stands decades after abandonment, rusting but defiant. The smaller array is still enormous by any standard. Together, they formed the receiver. The transmitter was 60 kilometers away to prevent interference. The entire complex was a secret city, Chernobyl, too, housing soldiers, technicians, and their families. Apartments, a school, a cinema, a fire station, a whole community in the shadow of the steel giant. Walking beneath it today is humbling. The wind whistles through the wires, echoing the ghost of its signal. The Duga is more than military hardware. It's brutal, functional, and strangely beautiful. It's a physical manifestation of Cold War tensions. A steel curtain meant to protect the nation, now a symbol of its deepest fear. The Duga's scale and ambition are a testament to the era's engineering and its paranoia. It was a fortress of technology, built to rock the sky for the unthinkable. Now, it stands as a monument to a vanished world. The wall of steel and wire is a reminder of the lengths nations will go to for security. In the end, it became a relic, silent but never forgotten. The Duga's shadow still stretches across history. Its story is written in steel. In 1976, a new sound invaded the world's shortwave radio bands, a sharp, insistent tapping. 10 taps per second, powerful and disruptive, it was everywhere. Jumping from frequency to frequency, it disrupted broadcast conversations, even aviation communications. The sound was so distinctive, it earned a nickname, the Russian woodpecker. This was the world's first encounter with the Duga radar. The signal was the sound of over-the-horizon surveillance in action. To the outside world, it was an aggressive electronic invader. Governments complained, but the Soviets denied everything. The woodpecker, they insisted, did not exist. The secrecy only deepened the mystery. What was this powerful signal? Its transmission power was immense, estimated at 10 megawatts, causing interference across continents. Amateur radio operators were especially affected, their signals drowned out by the relentless tapping. They fought back with their own noise, sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. The woodpecker became a legendary adversary in the ham radio community. More than a nuisance, it was a constant reminder of the Cold War, a technological barrier as real as the Berlin Wall. For over a decade, from 1976 to 1989, the woodpecker tapped away. It was the heartbeat of a secret war, a war of signals and surveillance. Its source remained one of the Soviet Union's best-kept secrets. The tapping at the world's door was a warning and a mystery. The woodpecker's echo lingers in the static of history. Its signal was the sound of an age on edge. The Russian woodpecker sent ripples of confusion and anger through the shortwave radio community. For amateur operators, it was a direct assault on their passion. They became detectives, triangulating the signal's source using directional antennas. Their findings pointed to a blank spot in Soviet Ukraine, a place the Soviets claimed held nothing of interest. The woodpecker also interfered with commercial broadcasts and even vital maritime and aeronautical communications, creating real safety hazards. For many, the sound became a familiar, if unwelcome, companion, recorded, cursed, and discussed late into the night. The woodpecker's rhythm became the soundtrack to an age of anxiety. It was a reminder that the Cold War could intrude into your home at any moment. For a generation, the tapping was inextricably linked to the feeling of living under constant threat. The woodpecker was more than noise. It was the voice of a divided world. Its static still echoes in memory. With the Soviets denying the woodpecker's existence, speculation ran wild. Theories ranged from plausible, over-the-horizon radar, to the fantastical weather control, even mind control. Some believed the Duga could manipulate the jet stream or influence human thoughts. These ideas, though unproven, reflected the deep mistrust of the era. The Duga became a blank screen for the world's fears, a symbol of Cold War paranoia. In truth, it was a product of military necessity, but its secrecy gave it a life of its own. For those living at Chernobyl too, the Duga radar was no mystery, it was their world. The secret town offered privilege and modern comforts, a reward for silence and service. Soldiers and technicians worked around the clock, watching for the faintest sign of American missiles. Their mission to be the first line of defense, the tripwire for Armageddon. Despite the high stakes, life went on, children at school, families at picnics, the steel giant always looming. Secrecy was absolute. Pride in their mission was strong, but the radar was expensive and unreliable, plagued by atmospheric interference. Reports suggest it never became fully operational. The Duga was a magnificent feat of engineering, but ultimately a flawed giant. It was a colossal gamble that never quite paid off. For its residents, it was both home and fortress. For history, it's a symbol of ambition and uncertainty. Life in its shadow was lived on the edge of the unknown. On April 26, 1986, disaster struck. Chernobyl's reactor 4 exploded, contaminating the region. Pripyat and Chernobyl 2 were evacuated. Residents never returned. The Duga radar was rendered unusable overnight, blinded not by war, but by catastrophe. The top-secret installation was abandoned in haste, everything left behind. The woodpecker signal lingered for a while, but the project's days were numbered. By 1989, the signal went silent as the Cold War thawed and the Soviet Union crumbled. Ukraine inherited the giant, but had no reason to revive it. The site was stripped and left to nature. The steel giant became a contaminated relic, a silent monument to a vanished superpower. Its sudden silence was as dramatic as its noisy arrival. The Duga's end was not with a bang, but with a haunting quiet. The world moved on, but the giant remained. Its story was over, but its shadow lingered. It sent, but in the mystery it created, it reminds us of a time when the world held its breath, listening for the tapping at the door.